All right, guys, I have 11 o'clock. Are you hearing an echo?
No echo.
All right, good. I am monitoring through another receiver here, and so I hear a little bit of an echo. But so let's get started. Um, I want to start by saying that these clinics, particularly the first one, a second one, third one kind of thing, is come about because of what I think I would have liked to have had available to me when I got started. And I asked around, and that it was hard to get the information. So I thought that I would put together something that would help someone else down the road. So that's what these presentations are going to do today. Take you kind of to how to get started. Um, you may already be down the road on this, in which case this will be redundant for you, but this is how I got started. And we're, looking here at the initial slide. This is the unit circle on the left. We're going to get into all of that stuff. Not today. There'll be very little math or theory because that's comes after you get your hands on it, really, I think. You can read books, you can take tests, you can even get degrees. But for me, hands-on is really where I like to be with it. So um, what we're going to do today, we'll go over this is I want to first point out to you that we have an interest list. It's located at this link. And I've listed everybody that I know of that either signed up as interested at the Cowtown Ham Fest or otherwise I know have been expressing interest. So if you'll go to this link and I'll click on it so you can see, it's a Google sheet. It's got names. Then in some cases it's got email addresses because they didn't give us their name. It's also got some columns here, what you're interested in. And we have, well, let me see if I can move this bar out of the way on my side. We have categories like installing GNU radio. That's what we're going to talk about today, primarily. Basic SDR theory and math. That would definitely be in the next couple of weeks. Then deeper dives into SDR theory and math, a practical application. And then if you'd like to teach, we can use some help from that standpoint too. We had a few people express interest in teaching. So that's the interest list, if you will. And let me get back to my wherever it went here. I guess where it went was it went the way of wherever I was here, right? Yeah. Okay. Also watch the NTMS SDR page for updates and additional downloads. That link's in here. We are recording this, as you know, and um, that I think will be very valuable for folks that are watching now but need to review and go back and see how it was done, because it's impractical for you to follow and do everything that I'm going to demonstrate here. Otherwise, you'd have to have two laptops, one to watch and one to do. I urge you to sign up for the NTMS Groups IO email to tracking NTMS events. Those links are on this page referenced above, the sdrclinics.php. And then I'd like to let you guys know that on our March 8th meeting coming up, I will be demonstrating Universal Radio Hacker. That's, it's another way to use an SDR radio that can receive and transmit. And the replay attack, it sounds bad, but in the hands of the right person, it's a good experiment. So we'll be showing how we can record digital data over the air and then replay it back to affect the target, if you will. So um, the little remote controlled radio controlled car running at 2.4 gigahertz, that's one. We can record the RF being transmitted to it and then play it back and watch the RC car react to the commands. The next slide has our starting schedule of meetings. This looks a little aggressive. Only attend the meetings that you need to. There's no need to get overboard on this. First of all, if you'll email your questions on installs and setups, you can clear up some of these problems just by email. I know because I worked with one person particularly that tested most everything that you're going to see, and we were able to resolve most of the bumps just through back and forth conversation in email or texting. Um, March 1st, which is next Saturday, will be a review. I'm going to put a Zoom meeting together, and that will just be for people that are having trouble or have additional questions, and some homework review that we're going to give out today. It's very simple, but it's how you learn is if you dig a little deeper. March 5th is a Wednesday. That'll be a 6 p.m. Zoom meeting. Again, if you're still having some trouble or you have some questions or you didn't get in on the March 1st session, then you can circle back on March the 5th. March the 9th is a Sunday. I want to do a 1 p.m. on that. Now, this one, we'll help with problems, but I want to make the majority of this meeting about additional theory and math. Again, it's high school trig and algebra. It's not anything heavy. We will explain our way through the math step by step. And it's good to have that background. March 15th is a Saturday. Again, we'll go through homework review, and we're going to go through some theory and math using GNU Radio. You're going to find that is the theme here today is GNU Radio. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the other clients that are out there, because that might be all that you're interested in, and it might be something that would interest someone else that you know. But the real thing I wanted to do is get into GNU Radio, and see what the deal is. Why is it important today? And so I'll be handing out additional homework assignments on March 15th. March 29th, it'll be a homework review and additional homework. We'll take a break. And then following that, we'll start up again in April 13th. I expect a lot of feedback and probably modifications to the content of what we're going to do. So feel free to supply that as you go along here. So today, we're going to explain how to create a bootable USB stick with a Ubuntu environment. And these include steps to install GNU Radio. Now, this is the most complicated process that we have that I'm going to show. And it's because once you get in the Linux environment, then you have to run git commands and other commands that will populate the right files and objects to make GNU Radio. Now, those have been reduced down to a command file. So all you have to do is open a terminal window and run that file. However, it can cause some questions to come up. But you are left with a Linux environment that is rich, with everything that Linux stands for. So creating this bootable USB stick with Ubuntu as the operating system from scratch, it just gives you the world of Linux, which some people want that and they want to go down that road. That's an additional rabbit hole of learning and opportunities. Then we're going to go into how to create a bootable USB Dragon OS environment. Dragon OS is a little bit special. That's really Ubuntu on steroids, if you will. It's got a lot of tools and clients and just a lot of prepackaged distributions. And so it's painless. You build this bootable USB stick and you're ready to go. You've got GNU Radio and everything else. I would recommend this for the adventures, the ones that like to do the adventures and that want the additional tools without having to do a lot of work to get them. Now, understand that as soon as you build these, they're aging. So these USB stick environments with their objects on them are not going to automatically update like your Windows environment might be doing for you. This is going to be something that you have to take care of, or the person that's taking care of the distribution would do for you. For Dragon OS, that gentleman has spent a lot of time to get it to where it is, and he's continuing to support it. But he has other interests too, and so his time is diverted into those other areas as well. So, and this is all open source and free, and nobody's getting paid that I know of. Then the third bullet point here, installing GNU Radio for Windows and other SDR clients. This is the painless way to go to get GNU Radio, and it works. And I would recommend that no matter what you do, if you have a Windows machine, that you do this one, because I find it real quick and easy to run GNU Radio, to run a test without getting back into Linux. But when I get serious, then I will take my flow graph and send it to myself by way of email and get it back into Linux. Where the other SDR client installs, those are the other pre-made software-defined radio packages that will run, and I'm going to demo some of those so that you can see. Then we're going to get into Oracle VirtualBox just momentarily to show that you can host VirtualBox on your laptop. It's available for all the operating systems. I've got it in Windows. And then you can put in a Ubuntu and a Dragon OS environment within your VirtualBox. So that's another way to get operating systems on your machine that don't affect your machine from the standpoint that you're not overriding your primary OS. And programmers would use this. I mean, let me just tell you that you can put Windows 3.1 on Oracle VirtualBox. And I don't know why you would, but you can. You can put Windows 98, you can put Windows 7, 10. And so this gives the opportunity to compile programs, see how they run under those other environments without having 6 computers or any other way to do it. So VirtualBox has its place. I do know that it takes a lot of power. I've got a 12 core machine here, of which I dedicate 8 core to the VirtualBox, and I still get underruns and overruns with actual SDR radios. And I think there's a whole world of configuring VirtualBox to make it as efficient as possible. And then today we will hand out some homework. It's going to be fairly easy and introductory. All right. So let's get started with our first item, which will be to create the Ubuntu. And I'm going to use PDFs where I can here, and then we will have to go to PowerPoint when we need to play embedded videos. All right, so what does this do here? This this will put the Ubuntu operating system on a USB stick. Now, once you get it on that stick, you have to change the boot order of your machine to tell it to boot off of that USB drive. And when it does, then there will be the first time some additional configuration that you have to supply to Ubuntu. And then we have these command files that you can download from the website and run that will place all the objects in the right place and will basically make GNU Radio. And that works quite well. Now that you have GNU Radio, you can use it and you can create flow graphs. You can download additional pre-made flow graphs. There is a browser in the basic Ubuntu operating system. You can use it to do whatever you want to on the internet or through your email if it's internet bound based. And then you will save those flow graphs. You will save different data, and all of the time that you're doing that, you're populating the data to that USB stick. So when you're done and you type shut down now in the terminal window, which is how you shut down Linux, you can take that stick and hand it to the next person, or you can take it to a different computer. And when you boot off of it, you're right back into that same environment. So here we go. Obtain a USB drive 8 gig or more. 8 is plenty. Download the latest Ubuntu OS from the official Ubuntu's website. Download Rufus. We'll talk about that. Test your USB by booting it up on your laptop. Configure the Ubuntu environment through prompts that appear. Download the next steps files from NTMS using the browser in Ubuntu. Run the next step files from NTMS, which contain commands that make downloads happen in your Ubuntu environment. Use GNU Radio to build a simple FM receiver. You'll have to have an SDR radio at that point. The RTL SDR is what we recommend you start with. That's about $30 on Amazon. But you can run exercises without a radio. So, some of our homework today is just exercises without a radio. So you can get to that point, like within a couple of hours after we're done today, you could be there. Then you can download other standalone SDR programs if you want to. All right. Some of the benefits. You can install or upgrade Ubuntu. That's the object. That's the goal. You can test out Ubuntu desktop experience without touching your PC configuration. You can boot into Ubuntu on a borrowed machine or from an internet cafe. And you can use tools installed by default on the USB stick to repair or fix a broken config. Those are just kind of hidden, not truly hidden, but files that are part of the build that could be helpful. Okay, so here's the link to download the Ubuntu desktop, and you want to be sure that you pick 24.1. And to do that, you go to this link, you click that green button to download, and make note of where it goes on your machine. Probably goes to the download directory. As the download starts, a new page will present to you, prompting you for your email. You do not need to fill that out. Found that out. Just take note of where the download file's located. The file name will end with .iso. Next, we got to get to this program named Rufus. Click on this link and you will be taken to the Rufus page. Scroll down the page until you've seen the green header list of links. If you're on Windows, you will pick this 4.6 x64 version. There are additional operating systems listed where you can get Rufus for other operating systems. And when you run the Rufus app, it starts with, well, first you got to run the file, which it's ready to run. So it's not like there's an install. Then you insert your USB into a USB slot. Now, if you have multiple slots and different devices attached, you may have to drop this list down to find your new drive. Now, in this case, I actually had a 32 gig drive because somebody gave me one and wanted me to build this for them on a 32 gig, which is enormous. So you'll find your USB drive, you'll select that. Then you have to find this ISO file that you downloaded previously. So you click on this select button, and then you look for that ISO file. If it's the only thing that you've downloaded, then it'll be in your download directory. It'll be the only file. But in all cases, the 24.1 will look like this one I've got right here highlighted. Okay, and then there's one other step here. You will see the volume label, which is that's a fancy word, but I think it's really the device up here. Volume label will be updated to reflect the ISO selected. Move the slider under persistent partition size all the way to the right. Now, that I don't think you need to move it all the way to right when you have a 32 gigabyte. This picture was taken when I was building a 16 gigabyte. Well, I wasn't building a 16. I had a 16 gigabyte um, drive. I'm sorry, USB stick. And when I took the picture, it showed that sliding this slider all the way over to the right would partition 8 gigabytes for this operating system. Don't forget to do this. Next, you may get alerted that Rufus requires additional files. Just click yes. Then you're going to get the warning that everything's going to be destroyed on the USB device. And that should be expected. You just click OK. And then it will begin to write the file. The progress bar is down at the bottom. This takes a little while, took 10 minutes for Ubuntu. It took longer on a 32 gigabyte stick that had a permanent partition of 16 gigabyte. So you go get a cup of coffee, watch the green bar go across, and then you'll get the installation complete. The status bar will be filled green and the word ready will appear in the center. I thought I put a picture here, but it got lost, I guess. Select close to complete the write. Now, congratulations. You now have the Ubuntu on a USB stick. Now we need to figure out how to get your PC to boot off of this. I'm going to show you pictures. I had to take them with my phone because I don't know how to run a screenshot during boot. But here's what it looked like for me. On my Dell laptop, I have to press F2 during reboot. It brings up this panel. I have to select boot configuration, which is the top item on the left side. Then I presented with a prioritized list of the way that the boot configuration manager will work through available boot configs. And at the top is Windows Boot Manager. So I need to move my USB drive, which is the third item down here that says USB P and Y. I need to move that up so that it's in the top place. So as you click that arrow pointing up, it will move up one rung on the ladder, and then you click the up arrow on that line, and it will move up one more rung. And now, in my case, I was at the top. Following that transition, then I would click down below. There's an apply changes, and then exit on the bottom right. Now, I don't know what yours is going to look like. I know on my CF33s, both of them look really, really old school, like Turbo C old school. And you have to use the arrows on your keyboard to move around the screen. But the idea is find the USB drive and move it to the top. Now, once you see the Ubuntu logo and a violet colored background, a panel will appear that says preparing Ubuntu, and then a welcome panel will appear. You choose your language and click next. You click next on the accessibility panel. You click next on the select your keyboard layout panel, and then click connect to a Wi-Fi network. Select your wireless ID and click connect. Enter your Wi-Fi password and click connect. If the next panel describes an update available, click skip. You're finally going to come to a panel that has two choices. It'll say install Ubuntu. That's the top choice. That's a permanent install. It'll wipe out your disk, your hard drive. The second item down says try Ubuntu. That's the one you want to select, is the try Ubuntu selection. Now, once you're in there, you're going to see pictures of Ubuntu here before we're done today, but Probably should have put them here so that I could start introducing you to the idea, but you're going to see a violet background and a row of icons down the left side of the window. You open a terminal window with Control-Alt-T. You can close this window by just Xing out of it, or if you're ready to shut down Ubuntu, you type in shutdown space now and press enter. Try out the Firefox browser. If you configured an internet connection, because you can say, no, I don't want an internet connection, but if you configured an internet connection, you should be able to browse the internet as usual. You'll find that Firefox browser icon. Any favorites that you save are going to be saved to the flash drive. Investigate the file structures. There, I tried to put the icon in there. It looks like a file folder with an orange top to it. If you download files from the internet, they will go to the download folder under Home in the file structure. With an open terminal window, type TOP. Press enter. This is a utility to see resource usage on your laptop. I find that to be helpful at times when I want to see what the script is doing to my CPU. Try out LibreOffice Writer. Many of you probably know what that is, but it's a substitute for Word, or it's like OpenOffice used to be. Go back and forth. Now, this is probably you hold your breath the first time, but in a terminal window, type shutdown now. You'll be prompted to remove media, which is the USB drive, and press enter. On my laptop, this results in a black screen, and I have to hard power off my laptop and then power it back on. Without altering your boot order, your laptop should boot into Windows. Now insert the Ubuntu USB drive and reboot your laptop, intercept the boot order screen again, and boot from Ubuntu. One other exercise of interest would be to take the Ubuntu USB drive to a different laptop and boot up under the Ubuntu drive. Check the differences that occur between a familiar laptop and a new laptop from the Ubuntu drive perspective. But basically, if you go to the second computer that has never seen that Ubuntu stick, when you get booted up under that Ubuntu stick, you're going to find that you have to configure again those 4 or 5 options, including the internet connection. Next, you would be downloading from the NTMS website 2 text files that contain commands that are run from a terminal window. These commands will cause many additional files to be downloaded that set up the GNU radio environment. It is important that you are in the Ubuntu environment when you download the files. Open Firefox and go to this link. And this is the SDR Clinic download page. So I'm going to go there. I may have it open up here. Oh. Here's the downloads. So right here, no, that's not the downloads. That's the Cowtown Hamfest presentations. One more. Here's the downloads. So if you're going to do Ubuntu, as we just described, you need these 3. The Clinic README is good to read because it'll tell you what these step 1 and step 2 tables or files are going to do. And it also explains how, you've got to type in a command on the terminal window itself in order to run these 2 files. Following these steps will get you completely set up with Ubuntu on a USB stick. I can help you with this if you get stuck or if you're unsure. Sometimes something that comes natural to one person, about a file or dealing with files is completely new or foreign to another person. And I've come to know that being involved in computers for a long, long time. And we make assumptions. And then, people don't know what to do. They're stumped or they're stuck with something that can turn out to be quite easy. Happens to me too. So I'll be glad to help you through these as you go. And then this one about Pluto compatibility, I just don't run that until we've had time to talk about it a little bit more. This is the hack that runs that will open up the uh, uh, analog devices Pluto to cover higher frequencies or broader frequencies. And these are our test flow graphs, and we will go through those today. Okay, now I think we're ready to go on to Dragon OS. I'm going to stop right there and see if there's any questions. Okay, let's jump right in here. Dragon OS, again, will explain that it not only has GNU radio built into it, but it has many other features that are really, really great and helpful that you may find useful. Like, I'll just name a couple. One, it has two programs that can be linked together that will um, track live satellite activity, a list that you provide, and it will give you the second program will have automatic Doppler shift frequencies present, and you can record. Um, so think of a system where you've got some kind of an antenna that you're watching the sky with, and you want to track the NOAA satellite, and you want to capture every single pass. Well, this would be the automatic way to do that without sitting at the computer and the radio all day long. So that's one thing. There may be other solutions that do just that too, but this is free. Um, Not the external hardware, but as far as what you would have on the inside. GNU Octave is included, and I found that to be very nice because that's basically MATLAB, and there's not anything that I need to do that I can't do in Octave, so it was included. Quite a few of the other SDR softwares are in there. There is a APRS decoder, um, and many other things. Anyway, let's go on. I'm kind of wandering here, but here's the steps. Again, it's going to seem similar. We're going to obtain the 8 gig stick. We download the latest Dragon OS ISO file. We download Rufus. It's used to format the USB drive, and it'll put the ISO file on there. You test your new USB drive. You configure the Dragon OS environment. It's a lot easier. It apparently makes some assumptions, and I found them to be okay for my case. I mean, it just came up and was running. Download the next step files from the NTMS website. Use GNU Radio to run the example programs from NTMS, and then download other standalone SDR programs if you want to. This guy has a YouTube channel that's put this together, and I've looked at a few of his recent videos where he's continuing to upgrade the package. But the package that we can get a hold of right now and put in the USB drive is dated about May of last year. Um, Here you can experience the environments created specifically for SDR experimentation. There's a good link here that goes in more in depth into um, all of the features that he's packed in here. You can experience all this without touching your PC config because it's on the boot. It's on the disk, the USB drive. You can boot into Dragon OS on a borrowed machine, and you can use the tools installed there. So here we go. Here's the link for Dragon OS. Click the green button. Take note of where it's going to be downloaded. The file name will end with ISO. And then we go through the Rufus. I won't spend any time on this because we just talked about it. But it's the very same. You'll see a different name in here. It'll, say Rufus. I'm sorry, it'll say Dragon OS. You can see the boot selection here, the ISO file, Dragon OS. And it writes the ISO. There's a warning, everything will be destroyed. This is the picture that I didn't have on the other one. When it, that's still writing because that green bar is moving. Yeah, this is the picture of a complete. It has the word ready in the green bar, and then you just click close. Reboot. I think I put these in here also. So this is again my system. F2 brings me to this screen. Then I have the arrow that I have to click to make the USB drive move up. And finally, when it's in place, I click apply changes and exit. Now, after some time, a black screen appears with the following. This takes some time the first time you do this. And there's only two choices here. The top choice is highlighted, so you just simply press enter. I think it will time out after a couple of minutes and it'll select the top one for you, but I didn't test that. After some time, you'll get this panel. And then here is the desktop. And it's a printed circuit board that looks like they've hacked on it. And then you have a row of icons in the lower right. I have a row of icons in the lower left. You'll have some icons up against the left-hand side of the desktop. But you want to take that far left bottom corner blue button. That is your menu button. And when you click on it, first I would recommend that you go to Preferences and Advanced Network Configuration and set up a Wi-Fi connection. Here's the network connections as it first opens up. There's nothing there. There's a plus sign down in the lower left. Click that plus sign. There's a drop down to choose the connection type. I've selected Wi-Fi. Give the connection a name. I've got two routers here. One's a primary, one's a backup. And so I put in primary. Then as its name, then I put in the SSID. Whoops, a little heavy there. There's one more configuration under security that you have to deal with. I just guessed at this based on, I don't know, some troubleshooting I had a few years ago when things didn't work right. Some of you are smarter and probably know what all these options are, but I just picked that one that says WPA and WPA2 personal, and that worked for me. And then you got to put in your password and you can display it. If you're like me, I got to check it about 6 times. And then you click save. And within a few seconds, you're going to get this notification in the upper right-hand corner. Now connected to 802.11-wireless, and then it stamps the name that I gave it. Next, you can open up the Firefox web browser under the Internet primary menu option. This took a while to load the first time, like 3 or 4 minutes, but it didn't take that long later. I opened up the NTMS web pages, of course. The test was successful. I launched a GNU Radio. That is under ham radio on the left side. And you can see a number of these options here that are pre-packaged in here that are Linux versions of all these programs. Here's the other menu. This is really, really long and much longer than we have time to go over, but I would like to hear what you play with, and then also in future sessions, we'll probably highlight some of these and talk about what they're able to do. Back and forth like you did with the Ubuntu stick. Make sure you can get back in Windows on your machine. Make sure it flips back into Dragon OS. Take it to another computer. Next would be to download the GNU Radio flow graph files. They end with .grc from the NTMS website to test the GNU Radio application. Okay, any questions? Okay, no questions heard. We're going to have to run the next one in PowerPoint in order to run the videos. Let's see, it is installing GNU Radio. Here it is. Okay. As I said, that GNU Radio is available for Windows now. Somebody has ported it and done a good job of it. I think it actually opens a miniature Linux shell by the way it looks when it launches. But anyway, this I do recommend you do if you have a Windows machine, just so that you have a quick and dirty way to check some things that otherwise you may have to take some time, you know, if you're going to have to boot up under your USB drive. So far, we've covered several environments. There's the Ubuntu portable USB drive environment. There's the Dragon OS with GNU Radio pre-installed. And then you could choose to do permanent installations. I know of at least one person that I've been working with that did buy, you know, a low-end laptop, and they dedicated it to Ubuntu and GNU Radio. In this presentation that we've got open here, we're going to talk about the direct to Windows install, the virtual box installations, and also additional SDRs software. Now, for the Windows installation, you go to this release, this Git, it's actually a Git link, a GitHub link. Scroll down to Assets. Did I say that right? Assets. And expand and show all 24, this highlighted link down here. For a typical Windows install, he's got all the OSs here. So, but for a typical window install, you would pick the one that I've highlighted. Launch the download file. Click Next and Finish. Now this stumped me actually, but trying to find where it was on my computer, I finally discovered if I just type in GNU, it would fly up. And you want to select GNU Radio Companion. That's what we call the interface that we work with. Again, download the NTMS flow graphs. We're going to show those here in a moment. And then, you know, if you have an RTL SDR dongle, you can run the FM broadcast and narrowband weatherband examples. You can only run one of those flows at a time. They're both of them on the graph board. So I'm going to show you that you use your mouse to enable or disable a full row of blocks before running them. Here in this example, the bottom flow graph is enabled. You see 1, 2, 3 boxes, and then there's 3 wires connecting to a GUI waterfall sync, a GUI frequency sync, and an audio sync. When these boxes have been selected, and that's what this is showing because the color is this it's blue color. If you press the D key, they will all gray out like the top row of boxes, and you've now disabled all of them. If you press E when they're selected, you enable them. So this is how you can have multiple flows on a single page, of which you're only going to select one or two. Right, this is the way that the narrowband FM weather radio will run and look when it opens all the way. When you click run, these other graphs open up. These are the sinks that we were just talking about back here. So the waterfall sink is here in the top, and the frequency sink is the middle box on the far right. And so that's what you're seeing here, is the waterfall and the signal in the frequency domain at the bottom. There's also a tuner that's a slider at the very bottom. Doesn't look like maybe it's not active. Let's go back here and inspect this because the frequency in it's not right. So this RTL SDR source set to frequency of 162.5. Yep, I don't see it, so it's hard coded. There is a slider there that is meant to be used with the FM radio flow, but I had not noticed that before. You just throw this stuff together. Okay, and then if you go to the FM flow, which is the top flow here, now we do have a slider that's active that can change frequency. You can see the waterfall and you can see the signal in the frequency domain. So let me see if I can get these to go and so that you can experience these things. So here we are. This is actually GNU Radio I'm displaying on the screen. I'm going to start the flow and it will run the bottom flow graph.
Or 60s. South winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Sunday night, mostly clear. Lows around 40. South winds around 5 miles an hour. And now the extended forecast. Monday, sunny, warmer with highs in the lower 70s.
Lower 70s. Okay. Now I'm using an RTL SDR dongle and a little short vertical antenna indoors here. About the vertical's about 18 inches extended. And I believe that broadcast is probably coming from the airport just up the road, Spinks Airport. That's about 10 miles away. Now I'm going to disable this whole lower section. My mouse got away from me there. Now I'm going to hit the D key as in Delta or disable. Now I'm going to highlight the top blocks. And I'm going to press the E key as in enable. Now I'm going to play this flow graph by clicking. You can either click this arrow or you can go to run, execute, or you can press F6. So there are 3 different ways to do this.
Take my love, take it down. Climb a mountain and turn around. And if you see my reflection in the snow covered.
That's a crappy sounding FM radio there. So that's a demonstration of those 2 items. And let's get this running again. Now let's talk about some other SDR clients. And that was GNU Radio there. the point of why I got started in all of this is to be able to have discrete control over every aspect of software-defined software, and really try to master the aspects that I was interested in. Now, these other clients are fun to use, and some of them are easier than others. Some of them have more control than other, and I've listed some of those items here, some of the features, advantages, disadvantages. SDR++, this is a client that we used a few years ago when we needed an IF radio at 144 megahertz that, my partner and I did not own a radio with a waterfall at the time. That's different now, but at the time we did not even have a waterfall. We found that it was really helpful at 122 gigahertz in case one of us had changed frequency, so we could see it in the waterfall. So anyway, it's got multiple VFOs. It's available for all the operating system. It's possible to write your own plugins. And here is a picture of it. This looks like FM broadcast band being received. You can see options down the left-hand side. There is a common look to some of these clients, and it's because the underlying API is the same. So I'm going to go on. I'm not going to demonstrate this one today, but this one I will. The AirSpy SDR Sharp is what it's called. I've got a video here that I will play that you should be able to hear. Okay, now what we're going to do here is a couple of different things, but we'll start on 20 meter CW and then bounce around. There's a shortwave radio station in AM, and then there's a ATC or approach control for Fort Worth, and then there's a wideband FM demo here. What you'll see here is it will seamlessly change modulation as it recognizes the different kind of modulation as the frequencies change. That's the only thing I'm doing is changing the frequency on this. Switching to a shortwave station.
Prophecy will be the rapture of the church. Titus 2:13.
Departure driveway 4009, 2.5, comment 10,000. Drake for the Logan, American 2357. Track Blico, climb maintain 17,000, stop those 990 pounds. Port Puncher, stick at 374, 56 on push.
97.1, The Eagle.
All right, so that get us back to the PowerPoint. So you can see really when it comes to functionality, I mean, you can find that functionality with probably some good radio nowadays that has an expanded receive. I'm talking about a ham radio transceiver that has an expanded receive, and Of course, if you have one of the Flex series of rigs, then you've really got a supremely good software-defined radio. This is another offering, SDR console. I found it pretty interesting. There are very easy to set up multiple receivers, which is an advantage here that some of the others don't have. K5ND uses it for monitoring 6 meters, and he's actually integrated it into his transceiver. So he watches for band openings, and he's watching WFJT frequencies, which of course are just like one of the best beacon kind of ideas you could have, since so many people are using the mode. And this link will take you to his description, which is pretty amazing. Here is a short video where I've got 5 receivers here, just more to demonstrate what it can do. And we're looking at the 20-meter single sideband. Have 5 receivers set up here. So you can see the 20-meter band here. Here, this is an FTA section, the propagation. You'll hear the tones. Now we got some CW activity down here. You can sometimes spot them here and jump on them quick enough. 9W. Then over here I have a broadcast. I have a aircraft broadcast band channel that I like to listen to. This one is departure control for the Alliance Airport in Fort Worth. There's not constant activity on these different channels. This is an artifact here that is at 135/600, but you'll see spikes come up as aircraft are, getting up to altitude, and they give a good, strong signal to my external antenna. So we'll mute that, and then this is the FM broadcast band.
Neuropathy is nerve damage to the feet and legs and hands.
What are the symptoms?
The symptoms
can just select another station by hovering over the modulated spike and select it like that. So that's not exactly on frequency, that's probably 97.1. All right. So you continue. Hard to get out of that sometimes. So I gave you the idea. You can have multiple receivers. Kind of interesting to kill some time with that. SDR Angels. I saved this one to the end because to me it has the most functionality that you could find and use in these prepackaged clients. So I'm going to demonstrate this aircraft ADS-B data. Keep in mind that these are internal antennas, so I really think that if you were going to get serious about some of this, you would have to have external antennas. Of course, you couldn't do the hydrogen line work from an indoor antenna for sure. So go down here and find, there's some more that it does, decoding APRS. And here's my demo. Angel, SDR Angel. And I'm just going to show kind of how fast you can put one thing together here without really knowing anything technical, or very little technical anyway. So this is the radio receiver icon right here with the waves pointed towards an antenna. First, you just pick your radio. I'm going to use a hack RF. You go okay to that. Now we're going to monitor the aircraft data that's available for the ADS-B data that's available, if I can pick it up here at Burleson. I was able to pick it up near Dallas earlier. We'll give it a little bit of amplification, not much. Really nothing else that needs to be done here. I will raise the sample rate just because the radio can take it, and I think the computer can take it. Now we'll go ahead and start this running. We do have a DC offset spike, so I'll take that out. And it looks like there is a signal there. It appears to be kind of weak, but that might be enough to demodulate data. So you see a little ragged trace in there, and there's not much you can do to try to make this look better. It's barely in there, but there is something right there. All right, so now we'll just invoke the plugin, which is called a channel here, and I wanted to unfold this list. It does start at the top with the one that we want, but just to look, AM demodulator, ATV, broadcast FM. There's also a wideband FM, but this is the right one to use if you're going to build an FM receiver to pick up the stations between 88 and 108. DATV, digital amateur TV, FT8, demodulator, frequency scanner. That'd be useful for scanning the aircraft or police band, or 2-meter repeater frequencies for 70-centimeter repeaters. You can put the CTS tone on those scanners, so you can conquer that. NFM packet, so that would probably enable APRS, radio astronomy, RIDI demodulator, radio song, SSB, VOR, a wideband WDSP, and then WFM, the wideband. So we're going to take the ADS-B and apply. That's the way you invoke it. Let me close that out. Now, this will map, if we're lucky and we can pick up these signals, this will map aircraft onto this map down below as it begins to pick up stations. This map, I noticed, has VOR stations, so there's Ranger, Maverick, Cowboy. Cowboy's up there near Irving, and this is probably Love Field. It does have the airports on here. And I'm located here off of I-35. I noticed it says home right there. So we should start seeing some data show up here. We'll pause this until we do, and then we'll come back. So we have a few aircraft showing up here. It looks like, see, I like this category because we also can even see the manufacturer. So there's a little lightweight Cessna. Looks like it took off from Burleson here, and it is, it gives the name of the owner. Oh, nothing like free information out there. So where am I? I'm located right here where this little tower is, and this small, looking like a light airplane, is that Cessna up here with call sign N3071B Bravo. How else could we identify? It's at 3,000 feet. Now, otherwise it just says light. All right, there's some others showing up, and the one is crossing really over my area right now, this one that's on this 30-degree arc. So kind of interesting what it's giving us here. There is a transition zone defined in one of these settings. I think it's in this one, that will explain how the aircraft show up and disappear. Basically, why it doesn't track them to their destination, or very far, in fact. And so this looks like it's centered kind of around my area of Dallas-Fort Worth, and so there is some limitation built in. Of course, I have just using an internal whip antenna here, so with an external antenna it might be a lot better, I would suppose it would be. So, okay, that's what I have to show there, and we'll call it done for this video. Angel. All right. I've got a couple of more videos here that will take us into this virtual box area. And so there is a link on this page to the actual download from Oracle. And then I've embedded these videos later in the next slides, but I do have the links here in case future folks are looking at the PDF, which does not work very well for these embedded. Now, what you're going to see here is the Ubuntu. This is actually running from a USB stick, as we described that process, and it's no, wait a minute. This is going to show the virtual box, not the USB version of Ubuntu running. This is Ubuntu running in the virtual box. So I'll narrate this while it runs because it has no audio. So this is my desktop, and I'm going to select the virtual box, and there you see Ubuntu already installed. That was we'll be showing you in the Dragon OS how that actually works to create a new instance of a virtual machine instance. But you can see if you look close here, this system is defined. The virtual machine is defined to have 8 GB and 8 processors. It is starting the OS, and in a moment the screens will change and we'll find ourselves in Ubuntu. Showing the version here, 24.10. See, there is a delay, 30 seconds, 45, full minute. And here comes the login screen. So we're almost there. There's a timer over here on my recorder. It's at 1 minute and 50 seconds. Now here's the Ubuntu desktop. This is a terminal window. So I have pressed Control T. Now I'm typing in GNU Radio dash companion and pressing enter. And now we're in GNU Radio. Run this flow graph. This is a complex real comparison. I want to change the frequency. Oh, that has an audio sync, so you might have heard a sound. Closing that graph will close GNU Radio, and then we'll type in shutdown now, and it closes up, and we're back to the virtual box. Okay. Now we'll do the same thing here. Except here, I'm going to demonstrate how we create the virtual box instance for Dragon OS. So we'll start with the virtual box running, and it will have the instance of Ubuntu that was previously installed and is not running. Our streaming needs to catch up here, but basically I'm defining the Dragon OS instance here and selecting the ISO file that had been downloaded. clicking next, and then there's going to be some sliders to define the memory, the RAM, and the number of processors. Selected 8 gig of RAM and 8 cores. Yeah, I'm not sure what was on this screen, and it's too fuzzy for me to read. Now it will start when I click this arrow. Now it's installing this Dragon OS instance, and the object is it will take us to the desktop, Dragon OS, and then I will run new radio. Here's the desktop. So I've invoked the browser. I'll go to the NTMS website. I will download at least, well, I think it's just one file. It looks like the complex signal plots. It's a little bit different than the last one that we saw. I'm going to save it to the download directory. We'll invoke the new radio. Again, comes already packaged in here, so it's just a matter of getting Dragon OS installed. Radio, I will open that downloaded file. Run it. Now there's no run button because of the size of the window, so I'm going to run execute in this case. Change the frequency. It comes up as set to 1 hertz. Now I've set it to 10 hertz. Now look at the constellation plot. Change it to 70 hertz, or no, 5. Looks like it changed it to 5. And that's the end of that. This will, I'm taking the option here to save the state of the virtual machine. So it's going to, this takes a little longer when you do this, but it's going to save the place in the application that I'm at within Dragon OS, so that if I had multiple windows open, it would save the state of all of those all at once. And you see that it says saved under Dragon OS. All right, let's talk one more time about GNU Radio, because this is the object of what I was trying to accomplish. And I hope that there's folks on the call here that recognize the benefit and you'll want to do it as well. but it's first free and open source software development toolkit that provides signal processing blocks to implement software radios. Let's talk about how it came about. It's really, um, a completely different group of people, but heavily supported by analog devices. So there's a marry up of analog devices interest and furtherance of GNU radio, not only because it's native to Linux originally, and it works well with their numerous SDR radios that they offer, and they have some very pricey, very functional radios. The entry level is what you hear us talking about with Pluto, and it is just an entry level radio. Now I bought two of those, and there's my partner has two of them, and we've modified them from the standpoint that they come shipped with a pretty crummy TCXO, and wanting to operate them at 5.7 gig, we replaced those references with the better part, and it stabilized them quite well. Still not great, wonderful, but they don't drift, like the original do. And so GNU Radio is you will find a vast group out there that is using it and working with it, and it has established itself as one of the de facto requirements as an engineer. And I'm going to show you some job seeking companies that actually spell it out as such. It can be used with readily available low-cost external RF hardware to create software-defined radios or without hardware in a simulation-like environment. It is widely used in research, industry, academia, government, and hobbyist environments to support both wireless comms research and real-world radio systems. Here's a flow graph. You've already seen some of these. We start with a source, and that will be what you see over here on the left, the FunCube Dongle Pro. That would be under the label of a source. And then on the far right, we usually have to sync these samples somewhere, somehow. You can have a dummy sync. You can have a audio sync in this case. You could have a transmitter. That would be also a sync that would accept samples from the flow. We use variables up near the middle top to define variables, parameters that we want to utilize in several of the blocks, and rather than hard code them in each and every block, we just set a variable and then refer to the variable after that. Qt GUI range, that'd be like a slider where we can adjust a range. There's a couple on here. There's a volume control and the squelch function in this particular one. Sometimes it's not really intuitive. Well, I'm going to say it's not intuitive until you've done it so much that you're thinking about it so much that it's starting to make real sense because there's so many options to go here. But the big gotcha is maintaining the proper sample rate, because if you get that wrong, bad things will happen. And not that you're going to destroy something, but you're going to pull your hair out when I say bad things. So here's a help wanted ad for a software-defined radio engineer, where this company in Colorado Springs, the pay range between 91K and 177. They want an MS or BS with 2 years experience. But they call out experience developing communication system components for SDR frameworks like GNU Radio. Experience integrating SDR components with external systems and software. Here's another one. this one is also Colorado Springs, and I've come to know that that is one of the hubs in the country. I'm sure there's several, but my son is in this business and just left the Navy, uh, did his tour after graduating from the Naval Academy in Annapolis and taking his submarine duty. He's now become a civilian and he's doing digital signal processing. And so we had a great visit at Christmas time since he just now got discharged, got his first job, and it's in Colorado Springs. So we talked about some of this here. It's highlighted familiarity and experience with Linux operating systems, familiarity with GNU radio and software defined radios, software development experiences languages C and C++ or Python. Here's another one. Mountain View, space, uh, experience with GNU radio. At the bottom, founded in 21, Moon Space is an Indian space systems provider, designs, builds, and generates LEO satellite constellations delivering mission critical data. Here's yet another one, SDR software engineer, parentheses, GNU radio. Develop a real-time capable transceiver GNU radio, FPGA-based hardware. At the bottom, experience with open source GNU radio software and or software-defined radio. Austin, Texas. So I wanted to just blast through this real quick. There's a lot of theory that we're going to get into, and this block diagram just kind of gives you a general idea that, the receives on the left side, the upper left, and then the flow would go left to right. And then on the transmitter, the Pluto can transmit. So that flow would go right to left. There are a dual set of mixers here employed, and there is a mechanical, or I would say physical filter system in the front ends. That would be the only non-software defined elements in the system. I think it's fair to say that accurately. So, you could talk about the KX3, you could talk about the Flex radio, you could talk about ICOM 705, and they're just packed with software defined features. However, there is always going to be some kind of physical interface because the physics of radio require us to interface into that physical realm. So there's a block diagram there. We'll get into this a little more later. The hack RF is the same thing. It's scattered out a little bit different, but it's basically the very same thing. Physical devices at the front end, software defined on the other. Here's the RTL SDR. It's pretty simple. It came out, it was a tuner for TV. It still is, but it is a receive only idea. There is a shift down convert, as you can see here. And we get into a lot of that in our theory. We did go through an hour plus of theory at the Cowtown Hamfest, and I'm very interested to do that again. More has been learned since that time. Here's some prices, just so you know. The RTL, I'm showing 39. I thought it was 30, but I guess it has gone up. It's $39 on Amazon. The analog devices advanced learning machine, Pluto's 223 over here at Mauser in Mansfield. Hack RF is $339.95. I want to talk about unlicensed transmit operation. We did talk about this at the Hamfest, and so were a lot of folks there. We did not know their status as far as licensing goes, but there are frequencies that you can use without license, and I've got them listed here in the frequency ranges, what their primary use is for, and kind of what the range you might expect there. So you can set your SDR transmitter on these frequencies. These things are putting out 1 to 10 milliwatts. Here's some more advantages you can have from being a ham radio operator. And as a technician class, I've listed the privileges down here. So you can see that you can go from 6 meters, 2 meters, 1.25, 70 centimeters, all the way up to really even beyond 47 gigahertz. But you get all of those privileges. I've listed the main propagation modes, other propagation, including moon bounce. Moon bounce listed on every single one of them. Um, Meteor scatter in some cases. So as a technician, you can enjoy these privileges. And there at Cowtown, they were actually doing testing in a different room, but they do offer testing on the second and fourth Thursday down at their clubhouse near downtown Fort Worth. Do you have any questions?
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Uh, on the homework screen, it talks about moving your downloaded files to the home directory. I'm not clear about what the home directory actually is.
Okay, good question. Um, I got a little stuck on the word home. It is in Linux, it'll actually have that name or the name of the owner, the value. But in the flow where we have you download the files and install the GNU radio components, which have numerous calls. They have get calls, hundreds of them. And in order to execute that file, you have to be in the home directory. And it's really just a simple way of saying when you open the terminal window, you're going to be positioned at the home directory. So the command you type in, which starts with ./source, will find the file that you reference next. So I got kind of stuck on home for that reason because I had trouble with it in the beginning, finally figured it out, got all that to work and realized, hey, there is a home directory and, I got to put these files in that directory. There's only 2 files, but I have to put them there so that the Control T terminal window is positioned right for the
Yeah, I've
command that
always
has
been
to be
a little
typed in.
confused about the whole Linux file system. Um,
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
still not too clear on it.
Yeah,
But
so that's something we should probably make a video on so that because that is a area that you can go wrong with. And let me just bring up the uh, files that we're talking about, because right here in this README, you will see, this is going to probably be too small to read, but it actually describes download to the home directory of your Linux install the following 2 files from links on the NTMS website. And it names the 2 files. SDR Clinic 1 with GNU Radio Step 1, SDR Clinic 1 with GNU Radio Step 2. Those contain multiple commands that if you download them to the home directory, you'll be positioned correctly when you open the Command T terminal window and type this next command in. There's 2 of them, but this
so
down
you're
here.
talking about in Linux right now, not in Windows, right?
Right, you're in Linux at this point.
So you have to have a Linux system going to get to that point.
Well, yeah, but you would have already this step is already coming after you've created your SDR, I mean your USB
So you're running
stick.
this off of a dongle. So you're running the
Right,
dongle, and then
right.
you're running this command, and but you're going to store that somewhere on your local machine. You're not going to put it back on the stick, right?
Well, it's actually going on the stick when you when you open your browser and say download it to home, it's going to the file system on the stick.
Okay. So the stick is actually a persistent stick. It's
Yes,
not. It's
yes,
not just a static stick. that you can't
Right.
save anything on. That's a good thing to know because I think I was talking to Al at the lunch thing last week, and he said he thought the stick was static. He couldn't get it to save anything onto a stick.
Yeah, that's a different problem because the partition has been formatted for use by Linux. You can't put the stick into your Windows machine and copy files to it.
Okay, and I think he was also saying that it basically makes, as described, it makes the stick unusable for space that's not part of the partition. The leftover space on there, he says, is not usable. I don't know if that's true or not.
That's true. So I mean, you've got to dedicate the stick to the what
For
you're
this
doing.
purpose, it's not going to be any unavailable space. So, okay. I also wanted to mention that the guy who does the Dragon OS, he sells some systems you can buy. I actually had a problem, but the nice thing about uh, he'll sell a little N100 Intel processor, small form factor PC that's preloaded with his Dragon OS, and he's supposedly worked out all the driver issues on that, and it's ready to go out of the box if you wanted to have one fully installed and don't want to go through the hassle of doing that. And he also sells, or he did sell, like a Pelican case box, like a Go box, with a bunch of SDR tools. I think that probably is not something most people would here would be interested in, but I think it was maybe a couple $100 for the what they call a War Dragon that he sells that's
Yeah,
preloaded.
yeah, I've seen it. And I like what he's trying to do, and I've enjoyed watching the videos. He's very straightforward and kind of reminds me of us. And um, I would like to look at this a little bit more. We'll put it together into one of our presentations. And I appreciate you mentioning Dragon OS to me, Eric, because I would not have even had it here in these presentations. Of course, now we've discovered a whole lot more about it. I do want to show you these steps here, because particularly
Mhm.
this one.
Mhm.
So when you run this one, all you've done is typed in this name of this file, but it's going to do all of this. So sudo apt commands, git, clone, cmake, and this is a very long file. It's got hundreds and hundreds of commands in it, which I found by going to these different wikis right here. One of them was analog.com's wiki, and the other one was GNU Radio. So by following this information here, these commands have been proven to work, but it's a little scary running it because it runs for 5 minutes and you see a lot of things happening. But that's all preparing that USB stick for use. Another thing I'll add right now that if people are scared of doing this or they have some trouble with it, I'll hand them a stick or send it to them. They don't cost much when you buy a bunch of them, and they're not hard to make. And I've handed out quite a few of them already. They're ready to go with Ubuntu and GNU Radio. All right, so we've gone through uh, not everything because now we have to get down to the homework. And let's see. Yeah, we got to run the PDF of this one because we're going to flip back and forth and actually run some of these scripts in my version of my Windows install of GNU Radio. All right, so here we'll get started. Normally you would go to the NTMS SDR Clinics page, which we were just on, and you'll download these. So these are the ones we're talking about. If you have a radio, you can download this other stuff. This bottom one is for Pluto. This one's for RTL SDR. These three are the ones that we're going to talk about right here. I can't make my mouse work right on this computer, but they start with GNU Radio Flow Graph. Those are the three that you would need to download. All right. And I've said it again here, and these links are live, so you could actually click on these links if you were in Linux, let's say, and it would work. And this is the first one. Okay, so complex plots. We're going to run that one. So let me get going over here. And it's called complex plots. Here it is. So I'm going to run this. First, I got to get the zoom bar out of the way. Run this. And then flip back for the questions that are asked here. So when the plot diagrams are displayed, observe the frequency slider is set to 1.000. This is 1 hertz. Let's go back here. It's this number up here. 1.000, 1 hertz. Observe the lower constellation plot. This is the GNU radio equivalent of the unit circle. What direction is the dot moving? Clockwise or counterclockwise? We may have to change the aspect ratio here. That much. Wait a second. That's not a complex signal, is it? Hold on. Yeah, it's got complex conjugate in there. Okay, what would we expect if we have a complex conjugate added to a cosine?
It's going to be the real part, 2 or 2 times
Yeah,
the real
it would
part.
be flat. So that's why this is doing what it's doing. So let's get rid of that by disabling. And now this thing is complaining because it says I have to have two. I have to have two if I'm going to add something together, right? You can't, well, I guess you could multiply the sample times itself, but you can't add unless you have 2 samples to add. So we're going to have to remove this line and disable the add and tie the source to the throttle. So let's talk about this throttle for a minute. The throttle is required if there's no hardware sink or source. The throttle is there to prevent the CPU from, running away. So you would never use the throttle if you had actual hardware, because the hardware will control the flow. I mean, it will set a limit on the flow. So you use a throttle when there's no hardware. You don't use a throttle when there is hardware. Now we have a complex signal going right into the time sink and constellation plot. We have not done the conjugate, which would, well, let's just look at it because this is part of the exercise. Here's the options. There's not many. You can give it an alias. You can add a comment. I'm going to say this is a comment. But documentation, you find yourself doing this. And if we visit that documentation page, it will explain that this block converts the input into its complex conjugate. This means that the imaginary part of each complex input value gets its sign inverted in the output. And it gives you the math. So it's just like you said, we're going to end up with real only. I've got the zoom bar covering my back butt. Okay, so now let's go back and say apply on this and okay. And now you'll see that the comment showed up under the disabled. Oh, it didn't show up, did it? I guess maybe you got to enable it. Yeah, you have to enable it to see the comment. So, but we don't need it in this example because we want to show the real value. And when we start this, now we have a rotation. This is the equivalent of the unit circle in GNU radio. We'll be talking quite a bit about that. Now, a counterclockwise rotation indicates a positive frequency. Basically moving from 1 on the x-axis to 1 on the y to -1 on the x to -1 on the y, and then back 360 degrees to +1 on the x. We put a minus sign in front of this 1, rotation will change to clockwise. Now up in this graph, Eric, you can see that the real and the imaginary are both, active and moving, 90 degrees out of phase. Let's put this at 70. A little easier to see the phase here.
It's hard to tell which way it's going though, because the window is completely, or the circle is completely solid.
Yeah, you can't see that anymore. You can almost see the 90 degrees. If you stop this just right, you would see 90 degrees phase difference here.
So that's 70 hertz there, as you set it to, right?
I set it to 70, right?
So if you wanted to do megahertz, can you put an M in there, or do you have to put in all the zeros?
You would have to. I don't know what the slider's built on. Cotton picking zoom bar comes up everywhere but where I want it. I can't get to things. All right, let me try to close
No,
this.
it's not that important. I was just,
Well, that would be a good homework item for you, but now somehow I got into the annotation menu. Hang on. All right, so we can stop it with this. Let's look at the frequency. Okay, so the frequency is a GUI slider, and it has the value. Yeah, it'll slide all the way from minus 10 megahertz to positive 10 megahertz. You can express it here with exponential if you want. I usually do.
mhm.
Um,
It looked like
it's
the window is pretty narrow. It might be hard to put big numbers in there.
Yeah, but you can slide it. So you could actually, this thing is still running somewhere. If I can find it, here it is. If you slide this thing, you can go all the way up to 10 megahertz.
Hmm.
This is stopped, so I have to start it again. You can go minus as well. Yeah, those are under your control. And this is not a flow graph that has a radio in it or even a speaker. But yeah, you can play with this stuff. So I think I answered some of the homework here. So let's go back here and catch up where we were. To run the flow graph, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Observe the lower constellation plot, which direction is the dot moving. Change the frequency to minus 1.000 hertz. Change the frequency to 70 hertz. Click the stop button. Are the I and Q signals in the time domain 90 degrees out of phase? Close the plots. Enable the add and complex conjugate blocks by selecting them. Well, that's how we actually started. So we found that when you have the conjugates in there, you've nulled it out. The throttle block, I didn't demonstrate this. You can if you want, but we basically went all the way around that. All right, now let's do this one. No, let's do this one. Okay, so when this is actually a continuation of what we were just doing, but when we add this back in, now I've got to take this line out, or I don't think I can just move it and then move it down here. Now, when we run this, now we see what happens here on the unit circle. And my question to you as homework would be, why is that moving back and forth like that instead of going in a circle? What's happening in the unit circle, the lower plot? And think about the unit circle with its X and Y axis. It's moving back and forth.
Oh, I mean, you're looking at just the real part, so there's no quadrature part.
That's correct answer. Let's let some other people come up with it too. Okay. Here's the next one. Real versus complex _1. It's got this funky name. This one also has an audio sync, so we want to be aware of that. I've got it right here on one of these tabs, so here it is. I've got the audio sync disabled because when I was playing it earlier, I set the frequency to 1,000 and it bothered the dogs. So let's run this. Now, before we run it, let's just observe it a little bit. So we got a signal source, amplitude of 1, cosine. Same thing here. Signal source, amplitude of 1, cosine. And if we open one of those, we find that the output type is complex. I did not explain that earlier, but the color of the connector will tell you if you're dealing with complex value or real. There are some others here, float, int, short, byte. But a signal source is going to need to be complex. So we have a throttle. All we need is 1 to keep this thing from running away with the CPU. Well, what are we doing here? These out here on the far right are just instrumentation. So what's really happening here is that we've got a frequency that we can set right here. The default is going to be 0, so let's set it to 1. We got 1 hertz going for us here. We can raise it as high as the sample rate divided by 10, which sample rate is 44.1, so 4K. That's outside of our hearing range. There's no magic here to doing sample rate divided by 10. I just get in a habit of doing stuff like that, but I'm not sure it's smart. So what are we doing? We've got, let's say we set this to 1. This one's 1. Well, that's not going to help us much because 1 times 1 is 1, right? So, but if we get this to 10, and this one will automatically change to 10 because it's got the same variable referenced. So we put our slider on 10. Both of these sources will be 10. But we're going to multiply here and display it up here. Well, that'll be the multiplied complex values. We're also going to take the multiplied value, 10 times 10 is 100, and we're going to turn it into a float that we can put out to these instruments and an audio sync. So let's run this thing, and we're going to let the audio sync be on, at least to start. Zoom bar again is in the upper right-hand corner, and I can't reach the frequency control. Oh, it's down here in the middle. Sorry. I'm looking for it in the upper right-hand corner. The slider is here. Now, you can position these graphs in their definition. So I did that here so that we might be able to see most of it on the screen at once. Can't see quite all of it, but you can see most of it. So if we set this to 10, press enter. Can't say that I'm hearing anything yet. Move that up to 100.
Jim, that's coming through really choppy on my side when you run that. I don't know if that's anybody else's experience as well, but
Say that again, Alex.
You're coming through really choppy right now.
Okay. Choppy.
You may want to disable the audio out of this audio sync because it's telling
Yeah,
it's current
I'll
coverage.
disable it because I can't hear it. So we'll just disable this block. Run it again.
Yeah, we could hear the low frequency and the high frequency. It sounded like being inside an MRI machine.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, we don't like that. All right, so now you've got lots you can observe here. And mostly for homework, I'd really like you to explain what's going on here with the multiplied versus the non-multiplied. You might have to stop that to take a look at it. You can definitely see the two frequencies. And I made one set of them have dots. It's, I'm sure, pretty hard to see on the screen. It's the green and the black. So it's the multiplied values that have a dot trace. And by the way, those dots are the sample rate that you're seeing. And there's a place where you can do that in the definition of the instrumentation. There's an interesting thing going on here where you see this up and down, and you won't see it down in the complex plot. Now, if you run this to 1,000, I've got a second homework question. Where is it? Here it is, 1,000. That's 1,000 hertz. That's 1 kilohertz. And the question is, why do we have this different signals showing in the frequency domain? Here we have plus 1,000. No, plus 2,000. This is the multiplied set, right? Plus 2,000 down 16 dB, minus 2,000 down 16 dB. But on the other, having trouble with the bar again. Down here, both frequencies are positive. We've got one at 1,000 or 1 kilohertz down about 10 dB. And we've got another at 2,000 or 2 kc down 10. So I'd like to have an explanation from you guys at the next meeting. One hint is to take a look at where these sources are coming from in the plots. And the names are in these sinks. So the plot that says 2 complex in 1 domain is coming from the combination of the first signal source and the multiplied So the exercise is to trace those back, have an explanation of the frequency domains. I wanted to show you how you can put things in different order on the screens, and it's this down here. That doesn't have anything. Okay, maybe it's the frequency slider that has the positioning. It's held in the item that's called GUI hint. I don't know why they named it like that, but basically, yeah, here is the upper left-hand corner, 0,0. That specifies to put this plot in the upper left, 0 row, 0 column is what it's actually stating. This is saying 0 row, column 1. So if you don't do that, it just puts everything in one column, and you're going to scroll way back and forth. Okay, be aware it has an audio sync. We've already done all this stuff. Done all that stuff. Filter response. This is our last item, and we'll wrap up after this. Find the file, filter _ response _ visual. Have it up here. And we've got a Gaussian noise source, and we've got a low pass filter. Then we're going to throw it into a frequency domain sync. So let's look at the filter. The filter, the choices are limited here as far as the types. I have variables for the cutoff frequency and the transition width. Now this low pass filter is found over here in the right-hand side. So let's talk about this for a second. You hit Control F and you get this search window at the top. So let's say we're looking for a high pass filter. We type in high and we get 2 entries, high pass filter and high pass filter tabs. So as you get more into these filters, you can actually just define tabs and then refer to that object in a filter. Let's say you want to go find the RTL SDR. Then here's the source, because it is only a receiver. But you want to use the SOAPy version, this one down here. So that's how you find blocks. But let's get back here. So we have a low pass filter. We have a couple of variables. The cutoff frequency is going to default to, I was saying 10 megahertz earlier. 10E3 is 10 kilohertz, if it's hertz, and it is. And it's going to start at 1 kilohertz, and it's going to be adjustable up to 20 kilohertz in steps of 10. And then the transition width will start at 1 as a default, and it's adjustable from 1 to 5. Starting it. And here we go. Oops, we got what looks like a blockhead with the crew cut. So we could get really extreme. This is 10 kilohertz either side of 0, low passing, everything in that range. We could drag this down and tighten it up. That's 6 right there. 5 there, thereabouts. You can see the skirts are right about in the middle between 0 and 10. And then we can adjust the transition width make it larger and larger to where it's just not even reasonable. But my question to you is, why do these signal shapes in the noise outside the passband, why do they change shape as you go from very tight to a wider transition? It's got to do with taps, and then the answer probably is pretty simple at that point. Why does increasing and decreasing the trend width cause the noise signals outside the filter passband to change shape? And that's all we have today. Questions, discussion?
The question on the demo that you showed receiving the Starlink satellite leakage signal, is that KU band feed mounted in a dish, or how did you mount that outside?
No, that is it is a KU band bullseye that has a bias T on one side of it, and it's mounted. It's literally just sitting on a picnic table, pointed straight up.
Okay,
And so then should have a picture of that somewhere, but I don't know how quickly I could get to it. That's all it is, and I've tried to tilt it to where it's maybe more towards the north, but I don't really understand why it would be important to tilt it, since the objective with those satellites is to have a mesh covering. So it should be going overhead. And if you observe and sit there for a while, you'll see as many as 4 or 5 signals at a time, all of them showing that Doppler shift and moving in the same direction.
So that was the Doppler shift, the scan where it slips across the frequency range.
Right, that's the Doppler. And there are a few blogs out there where people have gone as far as to calculate the Doppler so that they could provide more proof that it's a LEO that they're listening to. But the frequencies have been published, and there's a couple of papers. One of them's written by a group of students in Austin that describe the gap between the data channels where the leakage is occurring. And so you can take each of the sets of data blocks, find the gaps, and then you have a range. You know, it's like 10.9 gigahertz to 12.5, something like that. Anyway, the paper, is out there. I've looked at it myself. Wanted to make a presentation on that by itself, just to show that, until they do something about that leakage, we basically have a beacon.
Pretty sloppy beacon, but
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's a lot of people that have been affected by it that are starting to raise Cain.
Okay, thank you much.
Yes, Maurice, thank you for the question. And I think
Real
I'll
quick
try
question.
to I'll try to put a picture together at least of it sitting out there on the picnic table.
Are you going to post a link on the groups.io to the recording of this session?
Yes.
A real quick question.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, a couple of times when you were back an hour or so ago when we were doing installation and selecting parameters, you mentioned 8 gigs and 8 cores. And of course, you said some people were using like 32 gig thumb drives or whatever. And okay, is there a specific selection for that, or did the cores have to do with your computer? or is that something else I don't know about?
Yes. So a couple of questions you've asked there. First, the USB drive size does not need to be bigger than 8 gig. I think it might be hard to find them that small, but definitely like a 16 gig USB drive is plenty big enough. So I had a friend that had some 32s and he handed me one and said, "Can you build me one of those drives?" So I did, but it seemed like it took longer. Everything about it took longer with the bigger drive. So my recommendation is get us get something 8 gig or larger, but you don't need much larger.
Actually, I would suggest you get the 16, just because I've had problems in the past. If you try and put an 8 gig image onto an 8 gig disk, some of that space may be reserved and it may not fit.
Cool.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So that's one of the questions, Pat. The next thing is the cores question. Um, I'm not an expert here, but I do know that in my case, I have 12 cores. I mean, I can go into my Windows information and see that number. Uh, Honestly, I think I don't want to call that fictitious, but I think as far as like real hardware, I probably have like 8 processors. And then there's some game they're playing, uh, with a hypervisor kind of thing where they're shifting the load around to make it in effect 12 cores. But I can see that number in my Windows information. Now, how many do you need? For that virtual box, the more the better. It's, I get a few problems when I run the Ubuntu and the Dragon OS in the virtual box. They're not terrible, but I mean, I get choppiness once in a while. And I know that the virtual box is a guest within my Windows environment. So my machine has got to be doing stuff, even though I've gone through and tried to shut things down that I didn't need, all the applications I didn't need. And I've even gone into the service that you can summon from the taskbar to kill threads. But I still have some problems trying to run in VirtualBox. I've looked up some of that. I've typed it in, and there's groups out there that say you've got to work on that configuration. You can't just do what I'm doing. You've got to tweak the virtual machine parameters. But I'm not going to work that hard at it because I don't really need it for what I'm trying to do. The USB drives work real well. And then for a quick check on something, I can just run my Windows version of GNU Radio.
Got it. Thanks.
Great questions.
Jim, can we do the homeworks on the Windows installation of GNU Radio, or do we need to do the Ubuntu?
No, you can do it on the Windows version. You can do this homework we have at this time. And I kind of want to say something about this, is that drivers. So when you get radios and you order your RTL SDR, or you get Hack RF or one of the other brands, they need drivers. And so some drivers are well supported. For instance, in the Ubuntu GNU Radio that we've shown on the USB drive, you're going to get the drivers for most all radios that you would be able to go get and buy. On the Windows version, it also has the drivers for, your Pluto, your Hack RF, and your RTL SDR. But some installations are not going to have those drivers, and now you're going to have to go find out how to get them and install them. So I don't like that stuff. I don't like headaches like that. And I know I'm like most other people are the same way. You know, they don't want to sit there for hours on their day off messing with a computer. So think about that and, you know, before making a decision to do something. I think you could get really challenged if you didn't have a way to build your GNU radio in a Linux environment. If I mean, we've shown you a way. It'll go on a USB drive, or you could buy a computer and dedicate it to that Ubuntu and GNU radio, and then just use our method and build it permanent on the disk. The problem would be is if you want to do something that is different than what we've shown, and you're going to have to figure out how to bring the files down into the Linux environment and build and make. They call it make, M-A-K-E. It's like that's equivalent to a compiled version, a binary version that will run. So there's folks out there that love that kind of thing, and that's what they want to pursue as a hobby is how do I get my Raspberry Pi to run GNU Radio, or how do I build? Let me give you this. You can actually take a USB drive and build a script that will run your Pluto. So you don't even have to have a computer. It will
Mhm.
actually, I mean, this is not easy. It's not something I'd recommend, but I know they're doing it and they're basically building I guess you would call it a headless SDR because it's an SDR radio, but it's not connected to a computer.
Yeah,
The
the
script
Plato has two zinc cores in it that kind of like the processors in a Pi.
they are, and I've heard they're equivalent to Pi version 1. So, and that's how that works is because it's, you know, it's reading the script on the USB drive and then it's executing from it. It really doesn't need, you know, what we've shown here with the GNU radio, the blocks. By the way, when you click that arrow that points to the right, a Python code is generated and then compiled and sent down to the radio if there's a radio in the script. So there's a lot going on in GNU radio that is not hard for you to use. It just happens. But back to the basic question, definitely highly recommend you get the Windows install if you're a Windows person. You get it up and running within an hour or two of us ending this call, and get the homework, pull it up, start working with it. If you get stuck, don't be stuck more than 30 minutes or an hour, and then just send me an email, um, and we'll see if we can't get you past the bump. Other questions?
Uh, Comments. If you wanted to run it on a Pi, the Dragon OS has a version specifically for the Pi that loads up just like or similar to the way that Windows or the way that the x86 system runs.
Yeah, GNU radio.
But you can get the whole Dragon OS image that'll load
Okay,
up onto your. You can burn a uh, micro SD card with the image and substitute it into your Pi and boot up from that.
nice. Okay,
And it also, I think both versions of it have all the standard drivers for hardware already preloaded.
before we end here, I do want to call out for my beta tester, Al Ward. He may not still be here, but he helped me vet these installation instructions, and I really appreciate his help. Anything else before we close it up for today?
I wanted to say thank you for the presentation, Jim. I had one comment. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So another option that you can do with installing Linux, if you use Ubuntu, it's also possible on some of the other Linux distributions, is you can do what's called a dual boot. And y'all might have seen in the chat, I posted a link to an article which I literally just used. I was kind of in and out of the meeting several times, swapping what devices I was on, but I just installed it on my computer. And essentially, it makes it where upon boot, all you have to do is select what operating system you want to go into. So now on my main desktop computer, I can swap between Windows and Linux just by rebooting the machine, and everything is exactly like running it like you typically would on your Windows installation. So that there is another option if you don't want to go out by USB, or uh, if you don't want to buy a second machine to dedicate to it, you can run it all off of one machine.
All right. It's good to know.
Hey, Jim, this is Al. I'm here. I just had to find my unmute key. Anyway, happy to help out, and I enjoyed it today, and we'll move forward with you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jim, this is Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, a quick question. After seeing this, first, I guess, thanks for the presentation. Excellent. Sitting here thinking about it, do you want me to create a GNU channel on the Slack? So if people want to post stuff or questions, we can kind of carry on
I
there.
really like that idea. I was even wondering if we could have a second channel for the group's IO side, so that we're not, but yeah, that would work. That would work too. Assuming that folks can, will get joined up on Slack with us so that we can then use Slack to coordinate the SDR conversations.
Okay. Yeah, I'll create that here in just a few minutes, and I'll send a notice out on the NTMS reflector.
Okay. That will be great. That I was worried about that because as this group gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then we start using the group's IO reflector for SDR related information. And I just imagine there's going to be quite a bit of back and forth. And if we could keep that isolated, not hidden, but just out of the mainstream, then we'd be better off. So I think that suggestion is good, and we should do that.
All right, I'll get it done.
Yep, thank you. Anything else, folks? Anyone else?
Off topic, but I know Windows 10 is about to run into life here. I've got a number of machines that I would like to continue on. If you had any thoughts or recommendations on how to extend the life of Windows 10 without going to Windows 11.
Okay, well, I don't have any opinion on that at the moment, Eric.
Okay, I just thought I'll throw it out there. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, Microsoft, I thought was going to offer for an extended support period for like 1 year for, I don't know what the price was, like $30.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I think that's an option. I'm thinking I may do that, but I think it's kind of like exponentially increasing. Like it's $30 the first year, and then $60, and then $120, and then just like I think after 4 years they just quit.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got several Windows 10 systems here I'm going to run into the same problem with, and I'm either dedicate it to some function that's not critical if somebody hacks into it, or just take the thing offline when I don't need it.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of taking mine completely, air gap it.
Hey, Eric, this is Al. Why do you want to not upgrade from 10 to 11?
Well, I actually 10, I think, is kind of annoying. Just with I've lost a lot of the control I used to get when I had Windows 7, and I don't really like all the intrusive stuff. It tends to monitor everything you do and report back to the mothership. So I mean, maybe I'm sounding like somebody who's paranoid, but
Yeah.
I would just like to have more control of the operating system.
I hear you. My biggest problem has been drivers as I upgrade, but I hadn't seen any problem yet from 10 to 11, but I've had to buy new sound cards and USB to RS-232 adapters. They don't keep up with it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I can offer a suggestion, I guess, to you. There's a recycle store not too far from where the barbecue place is. Maybe you've been to it before.
Mm-hmm.
You can pick up used computers there for $100 that are pretty decent i5s, or maybe even an i7.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a software package called Acronis, Acronis.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
To do backups, full
Mm-hmm.
backups of computers. You could do a full backup of your Windows 10 with that. And then you could restore the backup on another computer that you purchased. Then you could upgrade to Windows 11 and just see what the experience is. And you'd still have your Windows 10 if you didn't like it. But if you liked it, okay, then you could blow away your Windows 10. And some of those older machines would work well for this Linux stuff that Jim's talking about. A lot of
Yep.
people do put Linux on their older computers.
Yeah, I've thought about that. My main computer is actually not eligible for a 11 upgrade because I think it's i7 generation 6 or something like that. I think, and I think that's right at the cutoff. And then I think some of my boxes that I use bought for doing SDR, they're kind of right at the cutoff too, and they're not Windows 11 compatible. But I was going to run Unix on them anyway.
Well, you could solve that by when you buy a used computer from the guy, just get one that's capable, and then
Yeah.
do the upgrade and get to the next machine also at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Just an idea.
Yeah, I thought about trying to get some newer generation hardware to get some systems that are Windows 11 because I think I probably need to have at least one that can run the latest stuff. But I think I'm going to try and keep a lot of the stuff in the Windows 10, and still got some Windows 7 and XP systems around too. Thanks.
All right, guys, I'm going to shut this down, and it'll take a while for us to get the video sorted, and a couple of updates to the presentation materials here, because this morning I found a couple of changes I wanted to make. So those documents need to be uploaded to the website. That'll probably be later this evening, and then I'll send out an email that we are all synced up, and we'll go from there. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday with me, and hope that you got something from this, and it'll be fun for quite a while to come.
Nice work, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it.
Guys, bye-bye, everyone.